Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It is brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. Go to Bet365. Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast is here, which you can check out on all podcasting platforms. Plus, check out their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. The Eagles injury report is officially dropped, and it looks like, Adam Caplan, this Birds team is pretty healthy heading into Dallas.
Yeah, so pleasant surprise. So let's go over it. Let's go over offense. Julio Jones has a new injury. It's a groin injury. He's been cleared to play. He's ready to go. Jack Stoll had a knee injury. He's good to go. He's their backup tight end. Dallas Goedert has been cleared from his broken forearm. Yes, he confirmed locally that to the reporters that he did have surgery, but he had to wait 4 weeks. So that's the way it always goes. You can't do it before 4. A fracture of a forearm is 4 to 6 weeks. He came back in 4. That's great. He's been cleared. Calcaterra's backup has been cleared. He's got the ankle injury. Now, the big ones are on defense. This is great. Zach Cunningham didn't do a thing last week when he missed the game. He didn't even practice at all, even in a limited fashion. He rehabbed the hamstring injury. He got cleared. I mean, that's great. He's going to play. Darius Slay got cleared with the knee injury. Now, the only thing with Darius Slay is, Mike, older player, you hope he's normal, like he could do everything he needs to do. But, again, he took all of his reps today. He's good to go. So this is great. Look, the first matchup, remember, Bradley Roby did not play against Dallas, and that certainly had an issue. One of the reasons why CeeDee Lamb went off against them. Roby's back. They're as healthy as they've been in weeks. This is Fletcher Cox, by the way, took all his reps the last 2 days. That's great. Then Dallas, we should mention before we look at other stuff here, they're good to go. All their 53 players on the roster will be available. So here you go. Both teams healthy.
Match it up. Yes, indeed. Both teams ready to go, raring to go, and maybe one of the more important Eagle-Dallas games in a lot of games that have been very important over the years. This one here, Eagles win. They're 2 games up with 4 to go. Dallas wins. You got a tie in the division with 4 games to play. So, Adam Caplan, let's look at how these 2 teams match up with a very important game. Let's look at the Eagles' offense going up against that Cowboy defense. Nick Bosa says, we put the blueprint out for Jalen Hurts. I hope Dallas was watching. So, what is Jalen Hurts looking at with that Dallas front 7 in the defensive backfield?
Yeah, and Mike, they really have not gotten Hurts running. He just has not been effective in the run game. He's not been the major part as he was last year. Teams are trying to take away that with the RPOs. That's why the RPO numbers are down. So that's just something to keep an eye on. How do the Eagles deploy that? We talked to John DeFilippo, the former Eagles quarterbacks coach, who for our Patreon members, he does a film study, which we already put up today. And John said, and this is something to watch in the game, he's moving a little bit too much. He needs to settle down a little bit. He's just a little bit off his game. Hurts is. He's a little bit inconsistent. So let's see how good of a start he can get off against the Cowboys. Now the Cowboys, they make big plays, particularly Deron Bland, who's filling in for Trayvon Diggs. But he gives up big plays. He's given up a lot of yardage, a lot of touchdowns. He's also made a lot of big plays, 6 picks, 4 touchdowns, which is an NFL record for a season. But he gives up big plays. So the Cowboys play, they're 3rd in man coverage in the National Football League. And Flip said, I asked John this. John said that if you're a play caller, you love going against man coverage. Why? There's so much you can do. It's harder against zone because you could disguise. And, man, it's much harder to disguise. But they will blitz. Cowboys will bring the blitz. So the Eagles' offensive line, which is typically excellent, as they were in the first matchup for the most part, they'll have to do that again.
All right, let's get to the running backs here because a lot of people talking about the run game. The running backs last week, well, were non-existent. They didn't run a lot. They didn't run well. They'll face a Dallas front 7. They ran 33 times against the Cowboys last time, but not very well. So let's look at them and how they match up with Dallas in the run game.
Yeah, Mike, look, I'm not a run game guy. I want to pass, particularly early in the game. That's what you should do analytically. But my thing was, and my take's probably a little different than most people, just to get Hurts settled down, to get him in kind of a rhythm, let him work off of that run game, and I'd like to see that. And get DeAndre Swift the ball. What in the world is – I don't understand this usage, Mike. They were only down by 8 at halftime. I'm not buying that what Nick Sirianni's selling. You got to get – Swift is explosive. Now with Goddard back, there's no reason to think that they can't move the ball, and Swift has got to be a meaningful part of this.
Yeah, I mean, Swift obviously big play kind of guy. When he touches the ball, he has some burst. It's how can they get him the ball in space and let him kind of make things happen. What about, of course, A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith? We saw Quez Watkins back. Are there plays to be made against the secondary?
Quez Watkins, Mike, you just never know. Now, you add him to it. He can run. That's the one thing he can do. He's their most explosive player downfield. I'm interested to see what they do here. Again, you don't have to worry about weather. You've got Goddard back. We're going to include him here, Mike, in this discussion. Goddard had the big play where he got hurt for 28 yards, a catch and run. To me, Mike, they're going to come out throwing here, mixing in the run, and Goddard's got to be a part of it. Smith and Brown, we talked about this last year after the trade to get A.J. Brown. It's going to be hard to stop these three pass targets. Now you add a healthy Watkins. It's been very rare this season. Remember, Watkins has missed most of the season, that they've had all of these pass targets. And Lane Johnson, by the way, you should mention, fine. He came through last week's game fine. He's not even on the injury report this week. They got to attack. They got to attack the secondary, and they give up production, Dallas. Look what the Niners and the Eagles did. 6 touchdown passes in those 2 games. The only 2 teams that they've played that were over 500, they gave up big plays. So this is a defense you could throw against.
All right. What about getting Dallas Goedert back? What is the offense lost with him out, and what are they getting back, and how should he affect this game?
Yeah, do want to add something with Goddard. He's also very important to the run game. We know the run game hasn't been good. He's one of the better blocking tight ends in addition to being a great athlete and great down the seam. You can line him up at that X position, which they've done before. Yeah, look, they don't really what they probably will do is put Jaron Kearse as their tight end matchup. He's a third safety who's almost 6'4", Mike. He's a guy that typically gets matched up on tight ends, but Goddard runs well. He's bigger physically, and look for that matchup. And here's why they'll do it. They've got 2 athletic but smaller linebackers. That's why, by the way, they had interest in Shaq Leonard, because they just don't have anyone with experience. And Goddard should be very big in this game on Sunday.
Adam Caplan, Football at 4 from Inside the Birds podcast. And, of course, the Eagles' offensive line. They've been taking some questions this week if that line is as dominating.
Look, they know Dallas very well. They know they're going to blitz. They know they're a very physical front. It's one of these situations, Mike, they just got to hang in there. I think they'll be fine. And look, let's not forget, this bears repeating because it's almost hard to believe, but true. Nick Sirianni, the best head coach on the road in the National Football League since the beginning of the 21 season. Only 5 losses, Mike, on the road since then. Since they started, since he became their head coach in the regular season. That's pretty incredible, Mike. It's why I thought they could beat the Chiefs, because they take this portable game plan. Injuries won't be a factor because they've got all these key players back. I expect them to be very aggressive throwing the football. And I think the Eagles' offensive line, Mike, I don't see it being a problem. I think they'll be able to handle themselves here.
All right, let's go look at that Cowboys offense. They've scored 40 or more in 4 straight home games here. The Eagles' defense, by the way, has given up 30 or more 2 straight games. They haven't given up 30 in 3 straight games since 2015. So something seems like it's going to have to give. It's Dak Prescott, who seemingly always has good games against the Eagles and this secondary.
Yeah, and he ripped the Eagles apart the first game. But look, that was just a bad decision he made on that, getting out of bounds. Yeah, look, Mike, the Eagles secondary has been awful, the worst rated secondary in the National Football League, terrible on third down. They've given up the most production to quarterbacks and wide receivers in the National Football League. They're going to give up points, Mike, but remember, Bradley Roby did not play in that first matchup. CeeDee Lamb will play in the slot and outside. That matters. That's important. I'm so interested to see how they're going to match everybody up here. They've got to get off the field on third down, Mike. Their pass rush has got to be better. And the Cowboys line, though, I will tell you, has been phenomenal of late. It's going to be hard for them, Mike. I'm going to brace people for it, Mike. This is a tough matchup. Sean Desai is going to have to make his money this week. He's got to do a better job here, and I'm so looking forward to seeing what the plan is, particularly how to defend on the back end where they've been getting smoked.
Yeah, they've been having some big problems back there. What about Pollard in that run game? And look, the Eagles' run defense early in the year, Adam, we're talking about the top defense that nobody even wanted to try running on them. What's happened?
I think the young players, Carter and Davis, got a little worn out. And don't forget that Cox had the groin injury, and Fletcher, I don't think had been himself. So you look at that, I think that's part of it. Look, their depth is being tested. Remember, they started the season with 7 defensive tackles. They traded Contavious Street to Atlanta, who is kind of he's been kind of starting for them, which is amazing to me at D-tackle. They're kind of worn down a little bit, Mike. Let's not forget the crazy amount of snaps that they've played lately, particularly that overtime game against Buffalo, and I think they've been worn down here. Let's call it like it is. I think it's part of it. I know they don't want to admit that, but that's been part of it, and that's why they think they've been worn down at the front. Now, the Cowboys are well rested. This is another problem with the schedule. The NFL never should have done this, given the Eagles' opponents. It's okay, 1 or 2 games like this, but 4 straight games where the other team has been more rested, that's not good.
Yeah, the 10 days off for Dallas, San Francisco last week as well. Philadelphia, of course, playing their 4th game now in about 20 days against these teams.
Jeez, is it like that? Really?
Yeah. I mean, they played 3 and 13, so this will be their 4th and 20, I would guess, right? Maybe even 19. So yeah.
And Mike, they have to go 3 time zones next week. They fly on Saturday. I believe it'll be Saturday. They typically fly on Saturday out to the West Coast. But then their final 3 games are at home on the East Coast. And look, if they win these 2 games, they're going to have the number 1 seed, Mike. I'm just telling you. It's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard. I'd be very surprised if they won this week and next week. But this team is so resilient. And again, Hurts has not lost back-to-back games in the last 2 seasons when he started. So we'll see what happens.
All right, that all happens Sunday Night Football. You can listen to the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. A little breakdown of the Eagles and Cowboys from Adam Caplan from Inside the Birds podcast and the Inside the Birds YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.